angle right there. So on our shapes, we have a light source. So in order for us to know where value goes and how to make it look rounded and three-dimensional, we got to know where the light comes from. So you guys can kind of just mark a star up in your paper, and then we're going to see where the light is going to hit directly into that circle, and we're going to change it into a sphere that's three-dimensional by adding value. Essentially, all we're doing is creating a value scale now from lights to darks, only it's now bent instead of little boxes. The other thing is your final product you shouldn't see each step like you do in your boxes. These lines are going to disappear, and we want it to progressively fade. The first thing you should do if you don't have very light lines to begin with is kind of cut through your lines with an eraser so that you can see them but that they're barely there. I probably have done this so much that I could probably do it without lines. This little box, or this smallest little circle here, is going to be your highlight. That's the brightest, whitest value. So we want to leave that white. And usually a dirty blending stump can go around that. I'm moving in circles. So the next step is that light gray. Try not to start out too dark. Should have had somebody shut the radio off. So we don't want that to be a perfect little circle of white there. I'm going to take and erase the outlines now, because in the end you don't want to see any of those beginning lines. Kind of look like a cloudy cotton candy texture. So as I go down into the third value, I'm going to lay my pencil down. That's what you learned in your value scales, to start popping in the next darkest value. I'm using those lines as a guide, but I'm not necessarily going to stay within those outlines because then it'll look too stripy in the end. And I'm also going probably a little bit faster just because I've done this 100 times. Blending, I'm pressing really pretty hard, running in circles to keep everything nice and smooth. After this row here, I should have at least 3 values. And to have a good, realistic popping object off my paper, I want to aim for 5 to 7 values. So get down here and add the 4th value. Pressing a little bit harder, and again, I'm kind of a messy drawer. By nature, I am a messy artist, and I clean up later, and I tend to go fast. So you can see I'm running in the 4th darkest value here. Again, using those lines to guide me, but not necessarily staying right in the outlines. After that, I render and trying to get it to look more like progressively blending instead of seeing each little step. So then the final value for this piece to make it really pop is your blackest blacks. So just like what you guys practiced in your value scale, we want to get right up on the tip and start pressing kind of hard. At first, I'll go around the outside edge and kind of like the C shape that's here, maybe not quite as big as the outline there. So start with that dark outline, taper it off, and then I'm going to start widening it and blending it in. So this is value number 5 or 6 based on how you started out. The lighter you start out, the easier it is to get more value. So I don't want this to look outlined. In the end, outlines make it look cartoony. So I'm going to try to take the outlines away. I'm going to go through and clean it up. Your sphere now is a 3-dimensional ball that pops off your paper. It's now a form and no longer a shape because we added value to it. You don't want it to look fuzzy, so I got to clean up my shapes here. And then we're just going to lightly rub in some shadow. Okay, highlight, not a perfect circle like it is in the guidelines. It's a cloudy white shape. Very light gray, fluffy white gray around it, progressively darker gray, middle dark gray, black. So you should be able to count 5 to 7 values in your sphere before you call it done. Clean it up on the edges, rub in your shadow, and you can cut.